perception in life is something that I don't think most people realize they have such a deep ability to change and to alter. So many people, they look at life a certain way, and I think that that's the only way you can look at life and yourself and everything around you from. And once you're able to break through that mold of just having that tunnel vision of how you perceive life and reality and yourself, you become unstoppable. Now, for some people, it may be easier than others. I know it was really hard for me. It took me a long time, a lot of trials and tribulations to finally realize, like, hey, I don't have to see life through this lens. I don't have to, you know, I don't have to always look at the world from just one tint, one set of goggles. There's so many different ways you can look at things, and what I try to do now is I try to keep my perception. I always try to look at the positives in things, to put it simply. But I also like to kind of look at things from different points of view. Like, I don't know whether you call it more like conspiratorial or more like, you can look at all the different like theories of like why we exist, like whether it's like the simulation theory, or like we're on some sort of like soul harvesting farm, or you go so far down the rabbit hole with that. And sometimes I I approach it with caution, because I don't think you should just live your life like in schizo mode all the time. But it's fun to dip your toes in the deep end every now and then. Just don't stare too long into the abyss. But yeah, my default perception is just kind of like trying to, you can't look at the positives of things all the time, because sometimes you just have to realize that we live in a very messed up world with a lot of snakes in the grass. You always gotta keep a good head on your shoulders, and um, yeah, you gotta kind of live defensively a lot of the times, because there's a lot of people out there and just a lot of things in the world that want to tear you down, that want to hurt you. It's just the reality of things. But um, the positive sense, the positive perspective that I look at things from is always from like a long-term point of view. Like, I try not to react to things too impulsively. Like, if I'm having a bad day, if I'm being treated badly at work, or being treated badly by someone in my personal life, I try to take a step back and think about why the person is treating me that way and acting that way. And excuse me, and most of the time it's if you really take a step back and look at it, it's not towards you. It's not anything personal that they have against you. They're just lashing out whatever frustrations that they have, um, on the easiest target that they see. And I'm not much of an eye for an eye kind of guy. I try to stand my ground, and I always try to, like, if someone says something slick to me or like disrespect me, I always try to shut it down right then and there. I just call them out on it, and most of the time that works. And if it doesn't, I just try to separate myself from them as much as I possibly can. And you know it comes in peaks and valleys. Like, it's not always going to be easy to have a long term view on things. Like, I've been living on my own for 6 months now for the first time. Moved out of my parents' house. I got my own place. No roommates. I'm just paying rent. Just straight by myself, and it's a lot. I want to make a whole video dedicated to everything I've learned living on my own so far. And it's tough out here, and I'm not able to save and invest as much as I was before. And my savings and investments and all that, they're growing a lot slower than they were before. And sometimes that's really discouraging. Like sometimes I'm only able to put like, I don't know, less than $100, into my savings or into my investments, every paycheck, every week. And dude, it sucks, man. And it's just like, damn, am I ever going to be able to, reach the goals and live the life that I want to? Um, and you know, um, I try to just think of it as like, I'm not taking like the big steps forward that I was when I was able to just, stack up cash when I had very little expenses, but I'm still inching forward, even if if it's at a snail's pace. I have my foundation. I'm pretty happy with it. And as long as I can just, do a little bit better than I did yesterday, I know in the bigger picture it's going to work out because I've kind of taught myself to have that long-term vision of of life, and to have that discipline to, you know, maybe I can cut back on this expense or that expense. Maybe I can cook, just freaking eat beans and rice for a whole week. As Dave Ramsey would say, just eat beans and rice for a whole week and save all that money that I was spending eating out on food and, stuff like that. And yeah, it all ties back to like my perspective shift. Like if I was still in that very short-term gratification mindset and just thinking like, oh, like, oh, I'm never gonna make it. Like it would be very hard to stay consistent and to trust the process. But I know it's just part of the growing pains of being an adult and being a man and building my foundation because I work in a career that has like unlimited growth potential. I know eventually I'm going to be making more money. I know eventually my investments, the little bit of returns and dividends and growth and interest that I'm seeing right now, it's going to snowball into something crazy as long as I keep that that drive going, that consistency, you know and it's like I haven't looked much into like the whole like manifestation thing and all that. I mean, like I really don't believe you can just like give yourself affirmations and things are just gonna plop into your hands without you putting in the work to do them. And I say this in the sense of just because you have like you think about things positively all the time and you think, oh, things are gonna work out, they're good, like it does take more than that. Like I try to surround myself with people that are on the same wavelength as me, and I try to I've mentioned in my previous videos, I go to martial arts. I do these extracurricular things. I try to build on the foundation that I have, and that helps me maintain my perspective. When you're in it, when you're like head first into the positive things that are going to give you good long-term returns, that's how you keep it going. That's how you keep the ball rolling. You can't just expect things to happen. And maybe I'm preaching to the choir here because I know I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but it really is true. It's just about that consistency, bro. It's just about that, like, knowing that things are going to work out in the end. And even if the world blows up tomorrow and I don't ever accomplish my dreams, I'm going out swinging, bro. I'm going out swinging. Like that's it. That's where I'm at, bro. Like it's do or die out here. And you just have to find the things inside of you, whether it takes meditation or reading, self-reflection, going for walks without listening to music and having your headphones in and just clearing your mind and taking in the beauty of everything around you. Whatever it takes to get that mindset shift, you just have to do it. You can't just expect it to fall out of thin air. You can't. They say beware of unearned knowledge. You have to beware of unearned wisdom, one of the two. I like wisdom better because I think this goes more into wisdom than it does knowledge. You have to have that inner core wisdom, to trust yourself, to know that your higher self is always is always there to talk to you if you're there to listen. And it you know, you're not going to see results overnight, but once you start seeing those results, you see that ball rolling, you see that snowball start to pick up speed and start to get bigger and bigger and bigger, you're not going to want to stop. And you know, just do whatever you can to get that perception shift. Yeah, perception is everything, boys. Stay positive, stay healthy, take care of yourself, eat good, fill your mind with positive things, cut the doom scrolling to a minimum, cut the fast food to a minimum, cut the corn to a minimum, cut all those vices, all those negative things, you know, cut those addictions out and replace them with healthy addictions. I promise you, your perception will change. I promise you. This is coming from a dude, bro, like, I don't want to get into my backstory in this video, but I was down and out, brother. I was down and out for a little while, and like, ever since I took this, I decided to take this shift in my life, it was like, I'm never looking back, and I love it no matter what. I love me. Alright, I hope you got something out of this video. You know, if you did, please like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like it, feel free to dislike it. You know, it's all good. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day. Peace.